We've all been there. You're standing in a circle with two other people, but it feels like there's a secret conversation happening that you're just not a part of.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you're in a relationship and it just feels crowded, even when it's only the two of you in the room.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Crowded.
We've all heard that saying, three's a crowd. And, usually that's just about like an awkward third wheel on a date or something. But what if three's a crowd wasn't just a social mistake? What if it was a weapon?
Oh, it is a weapon.
Uh,
And it's one of the most effective and, frankly, disorienting weapons in the entire arsenal of emotional manipulation.
So today, that's what we're doing. A deep dive into a very specific tactic, narcissistic triangulation. And, before you think, oh, I don't know any narcissists, I just want to stop you right there.
Right.
Because looking at the research we've pulled for this, we've got a lot from clinical profiles, simply psychology, Healthline, this dynamic, it happens everywhere.
Absolutely everywhere. It's in the boardroom at work, it's sitting right there at the Thanksgiving dinner table, and it's definitely in the bedroom.
And the really scary part, I think, is that you often don't even realize you're in one of these triangles until you're already feeling the effects, until you're already, off balance.
That's it. You don't know you're in it until you're already bleeding, so to speak.
Yeah. So our mission for this deep dive is to decode it. We are going to map out the geometry of the drama.
I like that, the geometry of drama.
And we're going to break down the roles that people play, because it really is like a scripted play, whether you realize you've been cast in it or not.
And you definitely don't know your lines.
Right. And most importantly, we're going to talk about the exit strategy. Because all the research suggests that if you try to win this game on the manipulator's terms, that's actually the fastest way to lose.
The only winning move really is to not play, or to change the geometry entirely.
Change the geometry. I love that. Okay, let's start with the basics, but I want to get specific fast. When we say triangulation, I mean, my mind immediately goes to like high school math class, or maybe navigating with a map and compass. What are we actually talking about in a psychological sense?
So at its most basic level, triangulation is just a communication pattern where two people, they stop communicating directly. Instead, all the information, all the emotion, it flows through a third person, an intermediary.
Okay, but hold on a second.
Yeah.
Because, I talk to my wife about my boss sometimes. I definitely vent to my best friend about my wife if we're in an argument.
Sure.
I'm bringing in a third party. So,
yeah.
Am I triangulating? Am I the bad guy in this story?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's such an important one because we're social animals. We need to process things. We need sounding boards.
Yeah.
But the psychological literature draws a very, very bright line between what we call venting or processing and what is actual manipulative triangulation.
So what's the litmus test?
Yeah.
How do you tell the difference?
It really boils down to two things: intent and transparency.
Okay.
When you're talking to your friend about that argument with your wife, what's your goal? Is the goal to get some perspective, to understand your own feelings so you can go back to your wife and resolve the issue?
Yeah, of course.
So that's processing. You're using a third party to stabilize the original relationship, the dyad, as we call it. Your goal is resolution.
Okay. That makes sense.
In narcissistic triangulation, the goal is the exact opposite. It's not to fix the relationship. The goal is to gain power over the relationship. You're not recruiting a sounding board, you're recruiting an ally. You're trying to find someone to help you bully or intimidate or devalue the other person. You're actively trying to change a one-on-one disagreement into a 2-against-1 beatdown.
So one is about finding resolution. The other is about finding ammunition.
Precisely. And a lot of the time, that third person is just used as a buffer, a way to avoid accountability. I mean, think about it. If I can say to you, well, Dave agrees with me that you're being totally irrational, I don't have to defend my own point anymore, do I? I've just outsourced my entire argument to Dave.
And suddenly I'm not just arguing with you. I'm arguing with you and the invisible specter of Dave.
Exactly. And that creates an immediate power imbalance. You feel outnumbered. You feel ganged up on. And what happens when we feel outnumbered?
You get defensive.
Your nervous system kicks into fight or flight. You get reactive. And that reactivity, that emotional chaos, that is exactly what the manipulator wants.
It's a distraction.
It is a perfect magician's trick. They're saying, look at this hand over here. Look at what Dave said. Look at this other person. All while their other hand is, dismantling your self-esteem or getting what they want.
This feels like a good place to talk about the structure of this game. because the sources we looked at, especially the breakdown from Simply Psychology, they kept referencing something called the Cartman drama triangle, which I have to say sounds like a really bad off-Broadway play.
It certainly feels like one when you're trapped in it. And it's not a new idea. It was developed by Stephen Cartman back in the late 60s. And it basically says that in these high conflict, really toxic situations, people tend to slip into one of three specific roles.
Okay.
The victim, the rescuer, and the persecutor.
Let's walk through these because I suspect people, and I'm including myself here, often get confused about which role they're actually playing. Let's start with the victim.
Okay, so the victim in the drama triangle isn't necessarily a true objective victim of some terrible circumstance. It's a psychological stance.
A stance.
Yeah. The stance is, poor me, the world is happening to me, I am helpless, I am powerless to change my situation.
So basically an abdication of responsibility.
Completely. It's never, I lost my job because I kept showing up late. It's always, I lost my job because my boss has it in for me. The key psychological signature here is a profound sense of helplessness. They're broadcasting this signal that says, I can't possibly handle this on my own.
Which is basically the bad signal for the second role.
For the rescuer.
Now, see, this is the one that's tricky for me. Because rescuer sounds good. I mean, who doesn't want to be a hero? We pay money to watch movies about rescuers. Superman's a rescuer.
But see, Superman doesn't need people to be in danger to feel good about himself.
Good.
The toxic rescuer in the drama triangle, they do. The rescuer is very often a codependent enabler. They get their entire sense of self-worth or identity from being the one who swoops in and fixes everything.
So if there isn't a crisis for them to solve, they feel bored or useless.
Even worse than that, if the victim actually starts to get better. I mean, if they take responsibility and stop acting like a victim, the rescuer loses their job.
Wow.
So often on a subconscious level, the rescuer will actually sabotage the victim's progress to keep them dependent, to keep them in that helpless state.
That's really dark. It's like a doctor who keeps a patient just sick enough so they can keep charging for the visits.
It is exactly that. It's the white knight complex. The stance is, let me help you. But the subtext is, because needing me makes me feel important.
Okay, so that's 2 points of the triangle. Victim, rescuer, what's the third?
The third is the persecutor.
The obvious bad guy.
The one who says, it is all your fault. They're critical, they're controlling, often authoritarian and bullying. But here's the twist. And this is what makes the whole thing so incredibly dizzying.
What's that?
These roles are not static. They are not fixed positions.
But people move around the triangle.
Constantly. It's like a game of musical chairs being played on a tilt-a-whirl in the middle of an earthquake. It's chaos.
Okay, give me an example.
All right, let's say you start dating a narcissist. They might begin by playing the victim. They'll say, oh, my ex was just awful to me. She ruined my credit. I'm so damaged.
And naturally, I want to be a good person, so I step right into the rescuer role. Oh, you poor thing, don't worry. Let me help you sort that out.
Right. You're the hero. But then, a few months later, let's say you set a very reasonable boundary. You say, hey, I really can't lend you any more money this month.
Yeah.
Seems fair. In a healthy dynamic, it's perfectly fair. But in the drama triangle, the narcissist instantly flips. They switch from being the victim to being the persecutor.
Oh.
Suddenly it's, you are so selfish. You're just like my ex. I knew you didn't really care about me.
And just like that, I've been cast as the bad guy. I'm the persecutor now.
Exactly. And because you're a good person, you're uncomfortable in that role. You hate being the persecutor. So what do? You might apologize and give them the money, doubling down on your rescuer role just to get back in their good graces.
Or I might get angry and fight back.
Right. You might get so frustrated you actually become a persecutor yourself and yell at them, which of course just validates their original victim story. They get to say, see, I told you, everyone attacks me.
It's a completely rigged game. No matter what move you make, you're just feeding the dynamic.
You're feeding the dynamic. Unless you refuse to play. Unless you step off the triangle entirely. But before we get to the how, we really need to see what this looks like in the wild, in high definition. Because the theory is one thing.
But the reality is visceral.
It really is.
Okay, let's do it. Let's get into the scenarios. We've identified 3 big arenas where this plays out: romance, the workplace, and family. And I think we have to start with romance and this idea of the Phantom X.
The Phantom X. It's such a classic triangulation tactic. You're introducing a third party into the relationship who isn't even physically there.
The Healthline article we pulled had this one specific example that, honestly, it just made my skin crawl. It's the nude photo scenario.
Yeah.
Can we just walk through that? Because
yeah.
the subtlety of it is just, it's breathtakingly cruel.
Yeah, let's break that down piece by piece. So the scene is this. You're sitting on the couch with your partner. It's a normal Tuesday night. Everything seems fine. And suddenly they pull out their phone
Okay.
and they show you a nude photo of their ex-partner.
And the line they give you, the justification, is that they're complaining. They say something like, ugh, look at this. They keep sending you these photos. They just won't leave me alone.
Exactly. So on the surface, on the verbal level, they are playing the victim. Poor me, I'm being harassed by my crazy ex. But you have to look at the subtext. You have to look at the behavior.
Right.
The source material describes what it calls a visual check. They look down at the photo, at the naked body of this other person, and then they look up directly at you. Then they look back down at the photo.
That's silence.
Yeah.
They look up at you and then back at the picture.
Yeah.
That's the real message, isn't it? That's the web.
That is the entire conversation. It is a forced comparison. Without saying
Yeah.
a single word, they have just put you in direct competition with the person on that screen. And then, just to twist the knife, they might add a little chaser. Something like, honestly, I don't get it. We had the wildest sex. She's such a hottie. Too bad she's so crazy.
Okay, let's just pause there. That is devastating. In one breath, they've complimented the ex's body and your past sex life while pretending to complain about them.
What is the goal? Why would anyone do that to their current partner?
The goal is to induce a state of what psychologists call anxious competition. Anxious competition.
If you suddenly feel insecure, if you feel like that ex is still a viable contender, or that the ex was maybe better than you in some way, what are you going to do?
You're going to work harder to prove yourself.
You're going to work harder to secure your position in the relationship. It's the pick-me dance.
Right.
You start thinking, okay, I need to be sexier. I need to be more accommodating. I probably shouldn't bring up that thing that was bothering me because the hot wild ex is just a text message away.
So they manufacture your insecurity in order to gain your compliance.
Yes. And the genius of it, the truly insidious part, is that because they frame the whole thing as a complaint, she won't stop texting me. If you get upset about it, they can immediately gaslight you.
Of course.
They'll say, what is your problem? Why are you so jealous? I literally just told you she's annoying. You're the one being crazy.
It's perfect plausible deniability. I didn't compare you to her. I just showed you a text I got.
Right. But the message that was sent and the message that was received was crystal clear. You are replaceable.
Does this happen in less dramatic ways?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, showing an actual photo is pretty bold. What about, like, on social media? Liking photos, leaving comments.
Oh, absolutely. You could call that micro-triangulation. It's constantly liking slightly inappropriate photos of other people, specifically where you know your partner will see it.
Right.
It's maintaining this whole stable of flirty online friendships. It serves the exact same purpose to constantly subtly remind you that they have other options and that you should consider yourself welcome to be here.
It just keeps you perpetually on your toes.
It keeps you perpetually off balance, and a person who's off balance is much, much easier to push around.
Okay, so let's shift gears. Let's move from the bedroom to the boardroom. Scenario B, the workplace. Because we like to think of work as this, logical place of spreadsheets and KPIs.
Mm-hmm.
But anyone who has ever worked in an office knows it is an absolute hotbed of emotional warfare.
The stakes are so high at work, your reputation, your advancement, your very livelihood is on the line, which makes triangulation an incredibly effective tool there.
The character that we sort of identified from the research here is the concerned saboteur.
The concerned saboteur is a master of passive aggression. They would never attack you directly. That would be, unprofessional.
Right.
Instead, they weaponize empathy. They weaponize concern.
Let's walk through the project sabotage example that was in one of the sources.
Okay. So imagine you've just been given the lead on a huge, important project. You're excited. This is a big deal for your career.
Got it.
But you have a coworker, let's call him Steve, who also wanted that lead role. And Steve is resentful, but Steve is also smart. He's not going to come to you and start yelling.
No, he goes to your boss.
He goes to the third party, the top of the triangle, and Steve puts on his most earnest, most concerned colleague face. And he says something like, hey, boss, listen, I really, really hate to bring this up. And honestly, I feel terrible even saying it, but I'm really worried about them.
Wow. Starting with, I'm worried about them. That's such a shield.
It's completely bulletproof. How can you argue with someone's concern? And then he continues. I know they're going through some really tough stuff at home right now. Some relationship drama, I think. And, in that last project, I actually ended up having to redo a lot of their work after hours. I I don't want this huge project to fail. I want them to succeed, but I'm just worried they're going to crash and burn under the pressure.
He just painted me as incompetent, unstable, and a liability. But he framed the whole thing as him just looking out for me.
Precisely. He has successfully triangulated the boss. He has used the boss as a tool to remove you from the project, and the boss is now thinking, wow, Steve is such a dedicated team player, and I can't risk this project on someone who's having personal problems, so the boss reassigns you to a lesser role.
And then comes the kicker, the final twist of the knife. After I get the bad news, Steve comes up to my desk.
And now he gets to play the rescuer. He puts a hand on your shoulder and says, hey man, I just heard what happened. That really sucks. The boss can be so unfair sometimes. Listen, let me know if there's anything at all I can do to help you out.
That just makes my blood boil. Because now I might even start venting to him, to the very person who stabbed me in the back.
And from the outside, who looks like the problem? You do. You're the one who just got demoted. You seem erratic. If you try to go around telling people, Steve sabotaged me, you just sound paranoid.
Yeah, people would say, Steve. No way, Steve is so nice. He was just telling me the other day how worried he was about you.
It's the perfect emotional crime.
Because it's all built on the assumption that concern is always a genuine positive emotion. But in the hands of a triangulator, concerns is just a delivery system for a career-killing rumor.
Exactly.
So we've seen the Phantom X in romance, the concerned saboteur at work. Now we have to talk about what might be the deepest cut of all, the family. Okay. Scenario C.
Yeah, and family triangulation is so foundational. It sets the template for how we learn to accept or even expect this kind of abuse later in life. If you grew up in a triangulated home, the other scenarios we just talked about, the partner, the boss, they can actually feel normal. They can feel like love.
The dynamic from the research that stood out the most to me was the golden child versus the scapegoat. And this isn't just, a parent having a favorite. This is something much more structural, right?
It's deeply structural. And it really comes down to the narcissistic parent's split self-image. We have to get a little psychological here for a second.
Let's do it.
Deep down, a true narcissist has an incredibly fragile ego. And they have two conflicting parts of themselves. There's the idealized self. This is who they desperately want to be. Perfect, brilliant, powerful, special.
Okay.
And then there's the shadow self. This is who they secretly fear they actually are. Shameful, weak, flawed, worthless.
And they can't just hold both of those ideas in their own head at the same time? Like that they're a mix of good and bad like everyone else?
Yeah. No. The cognitive dissonance is too painful. It's too threatening to their entire sense of self. So they do something very specific. They project these two selves outwards. They literally assign these roles to their children.
So one child gets to be the container for the parent's ideal self.
That's the golden child. This child can do no wrong. They are perfect. The parent sees all of their own imagined greatness reflected back at them in this child. When they say, look how smart my son is, what they're really saying is, look how smart I am for having produced him.
Which means the other child gets stuck with the shadow self.
They become the scapegoat. This child becomes the designated trash can for all of the parent's negative feelings. If the parent is angry, it's the scapegoat's fault. If the family has financial problems, it's because the scapegoat is so expensive they carry all the parent's shame.
I can't even imagine what that does to the relationship between the siblings.
It destroys it. And that is the entire point. In a healthy family, siblings form a team. They have a horizontal bond between them that helps them navigate their relationship with their parents. In a triangulated family, the narcissistic parent systematically destroys that horizontal bond. The siblings are turned into direct rivals, competing for the parent's affection.
So the golden child looks down on the scapegoat for being a screw-up.
Yes, and the scapegoat is filled with resentment and envy for the golden child. And here's the truly sick part of the dynamic. The roles aren't always permanent. They can flip.
They can flip.
Oh, yeah. Let's say the golden child starts to develop their own identity. They say, hey, Mom, I've decided I don't want to go to law school. I want to be an artist.
Oh, no.
To the narcissistic parent, that is the ultimate betrayal. Yeah. Suddenly, the golden child is cast down from their pedestal, their disappointment, and the parent might turn to the scapegoat and temporarily elevate them. Well, at least you still listen to me. You're my good one now.
So the kids are kept in this constant state of insecurity, always fighting each other for a scrap of the parent's approval, instead of looking up and realizing the parent is the one pulling all the strings.
Divide and conquer. It's the oldest trick in the book. If the peasants are busy fighting each other for bread, they can't organize a revolt against the king.
Divide and conquer. That phrase.
Yeah.
It just keeps coming up again and again.
Because it is the fundamental engine of control in all of these dynamics.
Okay, let's pivot a bit to the why. We've touched on it, but I want to go deeper. Is every single person who does this some kind of Machiavellian mastermind? Because I'll be honest, sometimes I might tell my mom about a fight I had with my sister just because I want my mom to tell me I'm right. Is that evil?
No, absolutely not. And the Simply Psychology source was very clear about this distinction. We have to separate unintentional triangulation from intentional triangulation.
Okay, what does that unintentional version look like?
It usually looks like anxiety. It looks like a deep fear of conflict. So in your example, you're mad at your sister, but you're maybe terrified of direct confrontation. You don't have the emotional tools to just go to her and say, hey, what you did hurt my feelings.
So I call mom instead.
You call mom. You're not trying to destroy your sister's reputation. You're just trying to soothe your own anxiety and get some validation.
So it's more about weakness than malice.
Right. It's emotionally immature, and it can definitely cause problems. But the core intention isn't about domination. It's about seeking comfort.
But the narcissistic triangulation we've been talking about, the intentional kind, that's a different animal entirely.
That is a cold, calculated strategy. And it is driven by one primary need: the need for narcissistic supply.
Can you explain what supply means in this context?
Narcissistic supply is basically the food that a narcissist's ego eats. It can be positive attention, like praise and adulation, or it can be negative attention, like making people fear them or react to them.
So it's just attention of any kind.
It's emotional energy. It's proof that they matter, that they have an impact on the world. Now think about the geometry of the triangle again. If I'm the single point at the top, and I have two people at the base who are fighting with each other over me,
Then you are the center of the entire universe.
exactly. I must be very important. Look at these two people competing for my attention. Look at how much drama I can create with just a single comment. It's an intoxicating power trip.
So even if the conflict is negative, even if people are yelling and upset, the narcissist is still getting what they want.
Oh, yeah. For a narcissist, negative attention is infinitely better than being ignored. Being the villain in the story is better than not being in the story at all.
That explains something I've seen. When things get calm and peaceful, they're the ones who will suddenly stir the pot. They'll drop some little bomb of a comment just to set everyone off again.
Of course, they're getting bored. Their supply is running low. They need to create a new drama triangle to get that hit of emotional energy, that dopamine rush of being important again.
Okay, let's talk about the impact on the person on the receiving end. We've established the manipulator's getting high on their own supply. But what is happening psychologically to the person being triangulated?
It creates a very specific kind of psychological erosion. I'd say the most common and damaging symptom is profound self-doubt.
The am I the crazy one
Yeah,
factor.
yes. Because your reality is being systematically denied. If you say to your partner, it felt like you were showing me that photo of your ex just to make me feel jealous, and they reply, no, I wasn't, you're just paranoid, and then they call their friend in front of you and say, can you believe how paranoid they're being? You genuinely start to question your own perception of reality.
That is the definition of gaslighting.
And triangulation is the delivery system for gaslighting. It's what makes it so effective. It brings in so-called witnesses to validate the lie and make you feel like you're the only one who sees things this way.
And I imagine that creates an incredible feeling of isolation, like it's you against the world.
Which triggers one of our most primal human fears. For our evolutionary ancestors, being ostracized from the tribe, being cast out, literally meant death. So when you get that ganged up on feeling, your body's alarm systems react as if your life is in danger. You get desperate.
And that desperation, I'm guessing, leads to what is probably the biggest mistake a victim can make. That overwhelming urge to set the record straight.
Oh, that is the trap. That is the big, beautiful bear trap waiting for you in the woods.
Explain that. Because my first instinct, if someone lies about me to my boss, is to storm into that office and say, that is a complete lie. Here are the receipts. Here is the proof. Why is that the wrong move?
Because the manipulator has already primed the audience. Remember our friend, the concerned saboteur?
Right.
He already went to the boss and planted the seed that you were unstable and going through some things at home.
So if I run in there angry and yelling, he's a liar.
You look unstable. You look exactly like the emotionally volatile person he just described. You walk right into the frame he built for you. You prove his point.
God, that is so frustrating.
It is maddening because the manipulator gets to stay calm, cool, collected, and concerned While you look completely hysterical, the more you struggle and fight back, the tighter the knot gets.
So fighting back directly on their terms is basically strategic suicide.
It is. You cannot outscream a narcissist. You cannot outmanipulate a manipulator. They have been practicing this their entire lives. You have to change the game entirely.
Okay, this is it. This is the part of the deep dive everyone has been waiting for, the exit strategy. We need to get tactical here. How do we start to dismantle the triangle?
The very first step is purely internal. It happens inside your own head. You have to kill the hope that you can win the argument or get them to see your point of view. You have to accept that you are not playing by the same rules.
Radical acceptance.
It is. Once you can fully accept, okay, this person is actively trying to triangulate me, you can stop reacting emotionally and start responding strategically.
I really like the nose scratch analogy from the Simply Psychology article. Let's talk about that.
It's a great visual, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We know from body language studies that when people are lying, they sometimes unconsciously touch their nose or cover their mouth to tell. But smart liars learn to disguise it. They'll pretend they just have a sudden itch on their nose.
Right. So how does that apply to triangulation?
You have to learn to spot the verbal nose scratch. When someone comes to you and says, you know, I really shouldn't be telling you this, but, or, I'm only telling you this because I care about you so much.
Those are the tells.
Those are the disguises. The performance of concern is the nose scratch. The performance of reluctance to gossip is the nose scratch. You have to train your brain to hear those phrases and see past the disguise to the manipulative mechanic underneath.
Okay, so I've spotted the tell. My coworker comes up to me at the coffee machine and says, hey, I shouldn't tell you this, but Dave was really talking trash about your report in the meeting. What do I say? Give me a script.
The goal here is to refuse the recruitment. You do not want to become the third point on that new triangle. So you say something very calm and very direct. You know what? If you feel you shouldn't tell me, then please don't. I'd much rather hear it from Dave directly if he has an issue with my work.
Oof. That is direct. It shuts it right down.
It's a clear boundary. It sends the message. I am not open for business as your co-conspirator.
What if they push it? What if they say, no, really, as your friend, you need to know this?
You hold the line. You can even soften it slightly while holding the boundary. I really do appreciate you looking out for me, but I have a personal policy. I just don't discuss problems with people who aren't in the room to speak for themselves.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Because you're framing your refusal as a matter of your own integrity, not as you being defensive or angry.
Exactly. Now they're the one who looks like they lack integrity if they keep trying to push the gossip on you.
Okay, let's take another one. The Phantom X scenario. My partner shows me a photo and sighs dramatically. She just wants me back so bad.
Okay. The key here is do not take the bait, do not show jealousy, do not show anger, but also do not show reassurance. You must become what some therapists call a gray rock.
A gray rock. Just be boring.
Be as uninteresting and unreactive as a gray rock in a gravel driveway. They are desperate for an emotional reaction. You give them absolutely nothing. Your script is something like, that sounds frustrating for you. Do you want pizza or pasta for dinner?
Class. I love that. Sounds frustrating. Pizza.
You are giving a brief, non-emotional acknowledgement of the surface level content. Frustrating, but you are completely ignoring the manipulative subtext. Make me feel jealous. You pivot immediately to something completely mundane. You refuse to enter the competition.
And if they push, if they say, don't you even care that my ex is still chasing me?
Then you calmly put the responsibility right back where it belongs, on them. You say, I trust you to handle your own relationships. You're an adult.
Wow. I trust you to handle it. That totally deflates the victim stance.
It denies them their role. You refuse to be the rescuer. You're not going to fix it for them. And you refuse to be the persecutor. You're not getting jealous. It leaves them just holding the bag. They have nowhere to go with it.
Now, what about that call it out conversation? The Healthline article suggested you can sometimes confront the behavior directly. But you said earlier that direct confrontation is a trap.
Yes, direct confrontation in the middle of the drama is a trap. But a calm, meta conversation about the pattern can sometimes work if you're very, very careful.
So, not in the heat of the moment.
Absolutely not. You wait until things are completely calm, a different day even. And you don't focus on the specific incident, you focus on the overarching pattern of communication.
What would that script sound like?
It would be something like this. Hey, I've noticed a pattern lately that I wanted to talk about. It feels like when we have an issue, we don't always talk directly to each other. It seems like we often end up talking through third party's name. I really want our relationship to be strong and direct, so from now on, I'm going to make an effort to always come straight to you, and I would really appreciate it if you could do the same for me.
That sounds so incredibly reasonable.
It is. It's almost impossible to argue with, and that's why it can be effective. If they refuse such a reasonable request, they are essentially admitting that they prefer the dysfunctional, indirect communication. It forces their hand.
What if the triangulation has already worked? The damage is done. The rumors are out there. The concerned saboteur has already poisoned the well at work. How do you clean up that kind of mess?
This is pure damage control. And your survival instinct is going to scream at you to go on the offensive, to run around telling everyone, Steve is a liar, he's out to get me. Do not do that.
So what do I do instead?
You go on what I call the integrity tour. You go calmly to the key people who matter, your boss, maybe one or two crucial team members, and you address the confusion, not the attacker.
Can you give me a script for that?
Sure. You'd say something like, hey, I've heard through the grapevine that there might be some confusion or concern about my capacity for this project right now. I just wanted to touch base directly and clarify that I am 100% committed and everything is on track. Of course, if you ever have any concerns, my door is always open.
You don't even say Steve's name.
You never, ever say his name. You make Steve completely irrelevant to the conversation. You are reestablishing your own direct lines of communication. You are redrawing the geometry from a messy triangle back to a series of clean, straight lines between you and the other important people.
That requires an incredible amount of emotional discipline.
It does. It requires you to consciously override your body's natural fight or flight response.
The sources also talked about the importance of building a toolbox or support system outside of the triangle.
This is non-negotiable. It's absolutely vital. You cannot get an accurate reality check from anyone who is also inside the manipulator's distortion field. You need a therapist who understands these dynamics. You need trusted friends who have zero connection to the manipulator or their social circle.
People who aren't going to try to be Switzerland.
Exactly. The last thing you need is a neutral friend who says, well, there are two sides to every story. In situations of abuse and manipulation, there are not two equally valid sides. You need people who will act as an anchor to reality. People who will say, no, that behavior is not normal and you are not crazy for being upset by it.
Let's just zoom out for a second. There seems to be a big philosophical shift that has to happen here. We talked about winning this game, and you said we can't.
You can't win their game. Their game is called Who Can Control the Narrative? Or Who Can Be the Biggest Victim? If you try to play that game, you will lose every time and you'll lose a piece of your soul in the process.
So what's the game we should be playing?
The game of autonomy, the game of inner peace. The victory isn't getting them to finally admit they were wrong, because they never will. The victory is getting to a place where their chaotic behavior no longer dictates your emotional state.
It's that old Eleanor Roosevelt quote, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
She was absolutely right. It's about revoking that consent. Taking your power back.
There was one final thought that really bubbled up for me when I was putting all this research together. We always think of the victim in this dynamic as the weak one, the one being crushed. But all the sources imply something else.
What's that?
The manipulator's doing all of this, all the scheming, the lying, the triangulating. Because on some level, they are terrified. They are terrified of direct communication. They are terrified of being alone. They need the triangle and the drama just to prop up their own fragile ego. They need the supply.
You're absolutely right. They are fundamentally parasitic. They cannot generate their own sense of self-worth.
So in a strange way, the person who doesn't need the game, the person who can stand on their own 2 feet, the person who can be a boring gray rock, they are the truly powerful one in the dynamic.
100%. The perpetrator wants you to explode. They want you to yell and cry so they can point their finger and say to everyone, see? See how unstable they are. They are actively mining for that reaction.
So the most radical, the most powerful move you can possibly make is to do the one thing they hate the most. To be boring. To be calm. To be utterly, completely unshakable. To be the person who just says, sounds frustrating. Pass the salt.
Silence is the loudest response you can give them. Indifference is the ultimate kryptonite to a narcissist. If they can't pull you into their triangle, they're just left as a single lonely point in space. And that is the one thing they absolutely cannot handle.
That feels like a powerful place to land.
Right.
It's not easy to do, but the principle is simple. Change the geometry.
Change the geometry.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today, from the Cartman drama triangle to the Phantom X, the concerned saboteur, and the golden child. We've hopefully armed you with some scripts and strategies.
And the key is practice. You're not going to get it perfect the first time. You'll take the bait. We all do. That's okay. The goal is just to recognize it, forgive yourself for being human, and then take a step back out of the triangle.
Awareness is the first step. And hopefully this deep dive has given you the map you need to start navigating this very tricky territory.
I really hope so.
Thanks for diving in with us. Stay safe, stay sane, and watch out for the triangles. We'll see you next time.
Take care.